Well, hey, good morning, church. Welcome to the Renew Church Sunday morning worship live stream experience extravaganza, whatever we call this thing now. This is what we do for church and have been for a year and a half.
Yep.
And we're continuing to. It's going to change really soon. But for now, this is Renew Church. This is our online service. This is the chance where we get to worship and celebrate together as a church family. We do some teaching here. We do some announcements, we do some worship, we talk about stuff that's coming up and ways that you can be involved, and so that's going to come up in just a little bit. But what you've tuned into right now is what we call the pre-service here at Renew Church, and that's kind of like the time when we're all hanging out in the foyer drinking coffee before we go into the auditorium. Or tea. Are you a tea drinker?
I'm a tea drinker, not
coffee.
No
coffee? Have you ever been a coffee drinker?
No. It's funny because I go to Starbucks all the time.
What's your go-to tea?
Chai latte.
A chai latte, okay.
Chai latte, no water, and with skim milk.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Guys, this is Darcy MacCallum. Welcome to the pre-service.
Thank you.
This is a great Sunday because we have Darcy MacCallum here to teach today in the service. You're going to preach this morning.
I am.
What are you preaching on?
Preaching on John 11, 12, and 13, because Bartley decided that I could chew off 3 chapters in one chunk.
So you're just going to read 3 chapters?
You know what? I think actually if we just read the 3 chapters, that'll take us 25 minutes anyway. That we go,
That's all it's going to
who
be.
needs to preach? Just let the word speak.
Exactly. No, it's a really exciting morning. By the way, my name's Andrew. I'm one of the pastors at Renew Church. If you are tuning in and you don't know who we are. This is a really cool Sunday because Darcy's here to teach, and we've been doing this all summer where we've had a whole bunch of people coming in and teaching who are, they're not just like random people. These are people who are part of our church, who have been a part of our church, show proclivity to teach as well as have kind of the level of experience and maturity to do so. And so we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But if you are just tuning in, we are in the middle of a series studying the whole Gospel of John all summer long. What did we call it? It's like Jesus according
to John.
Yeah, and so that's been a great summer so far. We got to hear from Elder Barry, I think. Was it 2 weeks ago? Elder Barry.
You were last week.
I was last week. We got to hear from Brandon.
I listened to you in California last week.
Oh, all right.
Just so you know.
Hey, I hope it was worthwhile listening. So this morning, Darcy's here to teach. And Darcy, what campus are you from?
Meadowvale. Had to think about that.
Right?
Yeah. I would just say Mississauga. It's like, it's Meadowvale.
Yeah. And how long have you guys been connected to the Meadowvale campus?
We came to the Meadowvale campus around April, May of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys got plugged in pretty quickly, didn't you?
Well, it was an interesting time in our lives. I had just been diagnosed with kidney cancer. Our church that we'd been attending was folding. And what actually led us to Renew was I got a phone call from Marcio Padovan. Yeah.
Okay.
So many people, this might be new to a lot of people, Armando and I go a long way back.
I didn't realize that.
In fact, Armando called me just a few minutes ago. We prayed together. We both came to Toronto in 2000 to plant a church. And we did church planting together from 2002 to 2004.
I didn't know any of this story.
In fact, I had the privilege of being the pastor to dedicate Julia Padovan when she was born. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Julia's going to be doing GCBI this year.
Yeah. So anyways, we came to, they invited us to Armando's 70th birthday party, and who would be sharing at that but Bartley?
Yeah.
And also saw Nathan there. And I knew Nathan from 20 years previously when I had been in the network of groups that were doing church planting. Okay. And so we would meet at tables, and I knew about the work that was going on here. I'd heard about Bartley, and it just felt like this was God's hand. And when we came to Renew, we had the diagnosis. I was having surgery in July, and it was like God just put us in the caring hands. And I remember Marcio coming over to our place and just praying for me before surgery, and it became home really, really fast.
Wow. I didn't even realize those parts of the story. I love that.
Yeah.
That just sounds like the church being the church. I love that. That's so cool. I want to get into some of your background.
Sure.
Because a lot of people may not even realize the background. You're kind of mentioning it here, so we'll get into that in just a moment. But I do want to encourage you, if you're watching right now and you haven't shared this with somebody, if you're in Darcy's group and you haven't told the rest of your group, guys, Darcy's teaching today, we need to watch. Or if you're at the Meadowvale campus and you're like, I didn't know Darcy's going to teach today, let people know at the Meadowvale campus. Let everybody know that Darcy's going to be teaching this day, not for any other reason than Darcy put a lot of work into his message this morning. Darcy has a lot of experience and wisdom that all of us can learn from, and the reason why we share it is so that that message can go even further than if we don't share it. And so share it with someone, let somebody know, tell everybody about it. We got a few minutes here before our service starts, and we're going to spend that time learning a little bit more about Darcy, and then he's going to lead the way in teaching this morning. And so, yeah, you don't want to not share it. It's an exciting morning for us, but Darcy, let's tell us about like your background, because you were in ministry for a while. You studied theology at a master's level, right?
Yes.
So like, what's the history there? And then you came to Canada. Where are you coming from?
Yeah, so I was born in Edmonton, raised in Calgary, and coming out of high school, I knew that God was calling me into some form of ministry, and started at a Christian school in Calgary called Foothills Christian College. It originally had been, I can't remember the name of the college, but it had been around for like 100 years. Then it went bankrupt the year after I went there. It's sort of like, I almost sometimes thought I have this reverse golden Midas touch, right? So in life. But yeah, it went bankrupt, and we had always listened to the Moody Broadcasting Network growing up. And we'd heard Moody Bible Institute was tuition free, and we're like, well, maybe we should go there. And sure enough, it's tuition free. All you have to do is pay for your room and board, which is as much as tuition. But next thing I know, I find myself, and I'll date it, it was 1986, moving to Chicago, Illinois, and went to Moody Bible Institute, met my wonderful wife, Vicki, there. We met in 88. She was there for 1 year of study in their advanced studies program, because she's
American or Canadian?
She's American. Okay. She's from Chicagoland, and is an occupational therapist, and was there for a year thinking about going into missions. Little did she know that the mission she would be going to would be here in me. I guess, that's me. It's me and then our wonderful kids. So we got married in December of '89, and I started seminary in January at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School.
Is that also in Chicagoland?
Yep. Yeah, in Deerfield, Illinois. And what a great time that was, because that's when D.A. Carson was there, Wayne Grudem, John Sailhammer.
I was going to say, that's like so many icons came out of Trinity, and you studied under them.
All of them, yes.
That's for people who don't realize, like, these are heavyweights.
Yeah, Scott McKnight
in theological circles. That's wild.
Yeah, it was an amazing time.
Wow.
And coming out of seminary, we were looking for churches, and God led us to a small church in rural Saskatchewan with the Evangelical Free Church of Canada. Joined there in the summer of 1992, and we're there for 8 years. Had our 3 children there, 3 daughters, Christy, Jessica, and Sarah.
How old are your kids now?
Whew, you're dating me now. So Christy's 28. She lives in Burlington, is very active in her church, helps lead the worship there. Jessica is 26, is studying to pursue a doctorate in clinical counseling down at California Baptist University. We were just there this last week. She's in Turkey now visiting some missionary friends. And then Sarah lives at home with us and is working in the computer industry and involved in the church. And it's great. All 3 girls love the Lord. What more could you ask for as a dad?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's awesome. Your kids are great. I've only met Sarah.
Yes.
But she's great. She's connected to, does she connect to the Random group?
She's in a group with Delia and
them.
Yeah.
They call themselves Random.
Is it?
I know it's not just a random group. They literally call themselves Random. But yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's how good a dad I am. I didn't know it's called Random.
That's great, guys. We're going to take a break in just a minute. After the break, I'm going to ask Darcy a little bit about his ministry experience, and then also what he does now, because he does ministry. Like, your life is ministry. It's not in the formal local church setting, but it's some pretty compelling stuff that Darcy does as a job right now. So we're going to get back to that. We're going to ask him about that in just a minute. Before we get there, we have a short break here. For those who are new or who are kind of unfamiliar, we take a short break in the middle of the pre-service in order to get you set up on our Renew Kids programming. And today's Renew Kids programming is awesome. So if you have kids in your home, anywhere from kindergarten to grade 5, we do Renew Kids online programming every single week. We have an amazing team who's been putting that together all summer long. They're a lot of fun. They're like 15, 20-minute teaching videos specifically for kids. And we want to make sure that you know the links to get your kids set up on that. You can have them set up on that for the rest of the pre-service. You can have them watch it during the service, or you can just get it set up so that they can watch it after the service. My daughter loves watching it after the service. My daughter's 2.5, and she loves Renew Kids programming. Awesome. She loves Liam. She loves Brandon. She loves Emma on it. She loved Lena on it. These are like icons. They're famous people to her. So that's a Renew Kids program. Here's the link below, and get that checked out, and then we'll come back and ask Darcy a little bit more about his life.
Super.
Welcome back, everybody. For those who are just tuning in, my name is Andrew. This is Darcy, and this is the pre-service, or as Gary Coates likes to say, the pregame.
There we are.
For the Renewed Church Sunday morning worship live stream experience. It's all online. We're still online every Sunday morning. It's what we've been for a year and a half, and we still are. And today's a really fun day because Darcy is teaching, and many of you guys know Darcy. We've already talked a little bit about Darcy's theological experience and his background leading up to this point, and we're going to ask him a little bit more about his kind of ministry experience and his life today. Before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to Pastor Armando because he's watching.
Yeah.
You want to say hi
hey,
to Pastor
Armando?
Armando's watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
He wouldn't miss it. I learned already in the pre service.
The pre
That was kind of your first connection to Renew, which is super cool. But tell us about your ministry experience, because you've been a pastor for many years.
Yeah. So we led a small church in rural Saskatchewan, a place called Neilburg, Saskatchewan, which is about half an hour south of Lloydminster and 15 minutes into Saskatchewan. We'd say it's close enough to the Alberta border that we didn't change, that we changed time zones with Alberta, whereas the rest of Saskatchewan doesn't change time.
Okay.
But we were far enough into Saskatchewan that we had to pay provincial sales tax.
Okay.
So,
Right.
so in 1998, Vicky's father passed away from cancer, and her parents had moved from Chicago to Michigan, and we wanted to be closer to her mom, and so we started to explore possibilities and felt, again, a calling and a burden to come out to Ontario. We joined what our denomination called the Ontario Initiative. That's where I met Armando, and it's through that I got to know Nathan and a few of the other guys around here, and worked in a Chinese church for a couple of years as an English pastor, then went into church planting. That did not take off the way we had hoped. It's hard to plant churches, I tell you.
Plant churches
really
anywhere,
hard.
let alone here. It's hard.
Yeah. Then I began doing itinerant ministry, teaching churches about how to work with immigrant communities, and was on the board of directors for a community agency, and an opening came there for a position that just grabbed me. And I'd been leading a group called Intentionally Intercultural Churches, and the pastors there just really encouraged me. They said, we need someone like you in the sector and to speak back to us. So took a dive and went in. I mean, it was sort of an interesting thing because some people say, well, you left ministry. What's wrong? And I say, well, if I was doing this in any other country than Canada, you'd call me a missionary.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So nothing had changed in our heart. Nothing had changed in our sense of following God and living the values of the kingdom and sharing the love of Jesus with people around us. But God led us into the social sector. And I've worked in a variety of different roles, primarily in immigration support programs. For 5 years, I was the executive director of Aaron Mills Youth Center here in Mississauga. And now I work in Toronto. I'm the director of family and wellness at an agency called TNO, the neighborhood organization.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What does your day-to-day look like?
Different every day.
So it's ministry. Yeah, exactly. So you're basically a pastor.
Yeah, so TNO is located in the Thorncliffe Flemington part of Toronto, so right near the Science Center, if you're familiar with the Don Mills area. Two very high populated, high density communities that are, if you will, gateway communities for people. A lot of people who move to Canada start in Thorncliffe or Flemington. Those are their first few weeks, few months. And so I'm responsible for a whole series of programs from childhood to seniors. So we do early years programming, youth programming, tutoring, have programming to support women who are experiencing domestic abuse. We have housing programming and seniors programming. And of late, we're doing a huge expansion. I just hired 2 managers prior to going on vacation. One is going to lead a integrated services for seniors, and we're hiring 20 people to be part of that team. And the other one is going to be leading a real exciting area for me, which is called integrated mental health services.
Cool.
And we're working at launching a mental health hub in the Thorncliffe area, supporting youth as they process through their journey in life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's only been exaggerated through COVID. Obviously, mental health and the deterioration is well documented.
Yes.
How has COVID affected you in your role and your work? And because I know at the beginning we were having conversations about it, and what you were experiencing was some real challenges that some of us maybe in the suburbs weren't necessarily seeing and experiencing. So.
Well, COVID has, without a doubt, and you look at the data, COVID has profoundly impacted people who are of lower income, and a lot of the people in those categories also are of different racial backgrounds as well. And in a community like Thorncliffe and Flemington, the vast majority of people that work there are working in sometimes in cash jobs. They're working front-end, low-income jobs. So they're working as your teller at the grocery store, or working on construction sites, working the kitchen. Yeah, it's face-to-face jobs, and it's often part-time, it's insecure. So there was a lot of fear around COVID. Like if you were getting sick, the thought of taking time off for COVID, many people didn't have sick days. Right? So if they ended up getting ill from COVID, they would not only be sick, but they would lose the income for those days. And so we had people falling behind in their rent, people unable to find food. So within 2 or 3 weeks of COVID hitting and everything shutting down, we had sort of revamped our organization to have sort of a hybrid. We had live answer phone services and people in the neighborhood so we could respond to needs. And one of my amazing staff members just said, we got to feed people. And so we started a food bank. We'd never been doing food services before then, and we launched in, and we, at the height of COVID, around last June, we were serving about 800 plus families a month. Now it's about 600 a month, and it's become a major part of our work in the area. We've been doing COVID testing, and then a large push right now is on helping people get vaccinated, helping them process their fears around vaccination or confusion because there's language barriers. Even if you think about it, people often have a reaction to the vaccine when they get it, especially the second time. People will say, well, I got sick for a day or two. if you're working part-time, that's a day or two of wages.
Right.
And we know from the data that we looked at, there's families that have lost over $20,000 in income this year because of COVID, right? And these are low-income families, because Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park have two of the lowest in the bottom 5 salaries per household in all of Toronto.
Wow.
And terrible living conditions. Like you've got 2 or 3 families sometimes squeezed into a single apartment.
Wow.
It's very difficult. And we understand the anxiety that people have, but we've done some amazing things. We were the agency that was involved with Michael Garron Hospital to vaccinate 10,000 people in one day.
Oh,
Vicky
wow.
came out and joined me for that.
Wow.
That was an incredible day.
Man. Well, hey, we honor and respect the work that you're doing. I think it's ministry. I know it's ministry.
Yes.
It's something that the Lord has led you to do, and you're actually serving Him by serving the people of that community. So that is ministry, and we honor you. We respect you. We thank you for being here and being a part of our church. You've brought a lot to our church, not just with that experience that you have and the work that you do there and the perspective that helps us with, but also just your maturity and your wisdom and your life experience. You've been leading an amazing group for many years, and I believe you're going to continue to. So
I've only led 1 year for Renew Group.
Oh, one group. Okay, for 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, God's given us a chance. I mean, the opportunity to mentor young people. I've built a beautiful relationship with many of you remember Brandon Rideout, and we still hang out together.
That's
and
awesome.
He's ministering to my life, I think, as much as he feels I might be ministering to his.
No, it's great. So we want to thank you for being here. I want our church to know we're excited that Darcy's teaching today. We believe in Darcy. We believe that the Holy Spirit has something for him to say and to teach us today. He's teaching from the scriptures. He's well overqualified to do that. So today's going to be a great morning. And we invite you to kind of press in this morning. We invite you to share it with people who may not be on already. And we invite you to be just kind of fully present for the service today. Sing with the worship team. Press in and listen to the message today, because God wants you to learn something today, I believe. And then just kind of be present with your family online today in the best way that you possibly can as we go into our worship service today. So thank you for being here for the pre-service.
Yeah.
Look forward to the message this morning. And we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and tell you guys about a few things that are coming up in the life of our church before we get into worship and the message this morning. So thanks for being here. Thank you guys for being here. And we'll see you in just a minute.
What's going on, Renew Church? Good morning and welcome to our Sunday morning service. We've only got a couple of announcements, so this will be quick today, but they're two big announcements. The first one is we are starting up live on Sundays again. And on Sunday afternoons, we'll be meeting at Hope Church here in Mississauga. But we've got some stuff to do before we get started there. We need people to come help us set up and get ready to welcome our family back at church. And so we need people for tech. We need people for the fit team, the welcome team. We need people for, we need ushers. We need all those things that we would have on a normal Sunday morning that we don't have right now. And so we will be sending out an email to everybody at the church asking for your guys' help. And so be prepared for that email. And if you want to help, if you feel led and called to help the church that hasn't really been going on for the last year and a half, respond to that email and let us know that you want to help, and we will find a place for you to help. Second is Maverick Youth is starting back up as well that same Tuesday. So on the 21st, I believe, of September, Maverick Youth will be meeting at St. Jude's Academy at 6:30, the normal time, but in a new place. And we will send you guys all that information so you guys know all about that. But it's been a hard year and a half for the youth. It's been a difficult time on Zoom, but we're finally back in person, and we cannot wait to see you guys on Sunday morning and your students on Tuesday afternoon. That's all for the announcements today, which is nice. Let me just pray before we jump into our worship service. Dear Heavenly Father, God, thank you so much for the ability that we have just to meet here with a group of people who love you. God, bless this service today and bless Darcy as he teaches on your word, God. Thank you so much for the family that we have and the opportunity that we have to now meet again in person, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Good morning, Renew Church. We are going to jump right into some worship this morning, so I would invite you to stand up and turn up the volume on your TV or your phone or your tablet or whatever it is that you are watching this on this morning, and join with us as we sing in worship and praise to God. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your name, the mountains shake and crumble. At your name, the oceans roar and tumble. At your name, angels will bow, the earth will rejoice, your people cry out. Shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh. We love to shout your name, oh Lord. At your name, the morning breaks in glory. At your name, sings your story. At your name, angels will bow, the earth will rejoice, your people cry out. Lord of all the earth, we shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh. We love to shout your name, oh Lord. There is no one like our God. We will praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing. There is no one like our God. We will praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing. There is no one like our God. We will praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing. There is no one like our God. Praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing. Lord of all the earth, we shout your name, filling up the skies with endless endless praise, endless praise. Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name. Lord of all the earth, we shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, endless praise. Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name, oh Lord. Yahweh, Yahweh, we love to shout your name, oh Lord.
Well, today's scripture is found in John chapter 11, and so I invite you to read along with me. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days, and he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when people walk at night that they stumble, for they have no light." After he said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up." His disciples replied, "Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better." Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who was to come into the world." After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, By this time, there is a bad odor, for he has been in there for 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and his feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did put their faith in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done.
Jesus wept. It's the shortest verse in the Bible, but oh, what a punch it packs. When I read the story of Jesus raising Lazarus and come to these words, I find I need to pause, to just stop here for a minute and ponder. Jesus wept. He wept. Now, there's more to these two small words than may initially think. In the Bible school and seminary, the verses are trotted out to prove that Jesus is fully human, that he experienced human emotions, almost as if God doesn't experience emotions. But here we see Jesus, fully God and fully man, weeping before the tomb of Lazarus. Jesus wept, and that means God wept, and that is profound and provocative. You know, when Bartley asked me to preach, I was both excited at the prospect of having a chance to share a gift to my home church, but I was also a little bit concerned because we were going to be flying home from California the day before, and if our trip out to California was any indication, we were 7 hours delayed in Denver Airport. But when he told me the passage was 3 chapters long, I laughed. I said, "You've got to be kidding, 3 chapters?" But then I read it. And it was as if something just jumped right off the pages, for there's something here that I really believe that God wants me to share, and it jumped right out at me, and I hope to be able to share with you today. That something is, if you will, it's a paradigm of ministry. It's how Jesus invites us as his followers to engage our world, to follow him in his ways. And it all starts right here with Jesus weeping before the tomb of Lazarus. Jesus wept. Now, there's so many incredible details in this passage. I wish I had the time to point them all out to you, but we've only got a short period of time. It would be a blast to open up the passage and do a deep Bible study together. But given the time frame we have, I'd like to just simply focus on a few things before we really dig deep into the passage. So some quick observations. Number 1, Jesus clearly intended to raise Lazarus from the dead. And that was his plan from the very beginning. And just keep this in mind as you look at the passage. Number 2, Jesus could not have gotten back before Lazarus passed away. It was a 4-day journey from where he was to Bethany. And the news came to Jesus 2 days later, Lazarus has passed away. So he could not have gotten there. Third, Jesus delayed his departure so that there would be no doubt as to the fact that he raised Lazarus from the dead. Since he's not going to be able to be there before he died to prevent the death, by delaying 2 days, Jesus made sure that no one could be mistaken. No one could think it was staged, that it was some sort of hocus pocus or sorcery. As Martha would say to him, Lord, there's a stink that would be here. There'd be an unmistakable odor of decay. The miracle, his final sign, would be unmistakable. There'd be no other answer to the resurrection of Lazarus and the fact that Jesus had authority over life itself. He was, as he would claim, to be the resurrection and the life. And then 4, Jesus shows us just how much God cares about suffering. John uses surprisingly strong language to describe Jesus' emotion. And we'll dig into this in a bit, but just let it sink in. Jesus knew what he was going to do. And he was intentional in his timing. Yet, when he comes to that very moment, standing before the tomb of Lazarus, he acted in a manner reflecting his intimacy and his passion. He weeps. Now, I mentioned already that it's somewhat ironic that this passage would be used by seminary and Bible school professors to point to the humanity of Jesus, that he felt human emotions. What it really points to is the fact that Jesus displays the same emotions as Yahweh. Many people envision God as being some sort of unmoved mover. Yet over and over again in the passages of Scripture, we find God interacting with humanity, engaging with us, wrestling with us, and experiencing profound emotional responses at us. From Abraham to Moses to David to the prophets, we find God as a God who grieves. He anguishes. He journeys with us and experiences our responses to him and our suffering, and he experiences it acutely. He is not remote. He is at hand, and he weeps. Our God weeps. Now, I mentioned that the words John uses are quite strong. Look at verse 33. When Jesus saw the weeping and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. Now, the first word that John uses is normally used for seething rage and indignation at something, outrage. This is no small disturbance. It's something felt so strongly and so deeply, like a weight or a pressure on your chest, an almost suffocating feeling that simply can't be expressed with words. Anger. The second word speaks of an inner turmoil, that unsettling feeling you have approaching things that cause anxiety, a huge exam, a performance appraisal with your boss, facing your parents or your spouse when you know you've disappointed them, an unexpected appointment with a doctor after you've had a repeat medical test. In John 12:27, Jesus uses that same word to speak of his own anguish as he anticipated heading to the cross. The suffering required to win our freedom was going to be profound. And once again in chapter 13, having washed the disciples' feet, John uses this word to describe Jesus' emotional state at the prospect of Judas betraying him and his crucifixion. Now, there's a lot of debate around what it was that caused Jesus to react so strongly. Some have suggested that he was angry at the unbelief of the people around him. But I don't see that, either here or in the other two passages where the words are found. Now, yes, at the end of chapter 12, we see John citing the words from Isaiah that point to people disbelieving that this was a fulfillment of prophecy. But in these immediate verses here in John chapter 11, we find anything but unbelief. Look first at verse 21 and 22. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. That's a pretty powerful statement of faith. She's virtually asking Jesus to do the very thing he came to do, to raise her brother from the dead. And in response, we find that she proclaims to Jesus an incredible statement of faith. Jesus says to her, I am the resurrection and the life, and we'll come back to that. And then she says to him, yes, Lord, I believe you're the Christ, the coming Messiah. It's the same words that Peter would use in the other Gospels to proclaim his faith in Jesus. What a profound statement. Faith is pulsating through this exchange. Now, look at verse 32, and notice the words of Mary are exactly the same as Martha. Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. Faith is all over the passage. Even the Jews commenting in verse 36 repeat the same confidence that Martha had expressed that Jesus could have, in fact, prevented Lazarus dying. So, if it's not unbelief that troubles Jesus and ultimately brings him to tears, what is it that moves him so deeply? And I suggest to you that it's precisely the suffering of the people around him. His anger is focused on death itself. Reflecting on the implications of Jesus' own resurrection, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, and he says this, that Jesus must reign until he puts all his enemies under his feet, and the last enemy to be destroyed is death. And here in John 11, we find Jesus standing before people suffering because of death. Jesus was face to face with death and what it does to people. It rips apart families. It hollows out the soul. It's the direct result of sin. It is his enemy. And faced with the carnage that enemy brings, Jesus didn't just sigh heavily. He didn't just groan. He was indignant. He was seething. He was steaming. He was furious. And then seeing the pain of the people around him, Jesus entered into their sorrow. He wept. The Jews commented in verse 36, see how he loves him. Jesus wept. And then he rose Lazarus from the dead. He wept, and then he acted. Now, perhaps you may feel like Mary and Martha. Perhaps you've experienced a profound loss and cannot fathom why. I mean, where was God? Could he not have helped? Could he not have intervened? And all those people who blithely recite Romans 8, you're going to slug the next person who tells you that God's going to work out good in your situation. You're suffering deeply, and the pain is real, the grief profound. Perhaps you've lost a loved one before her time. Perhaps you were downsized by your company. You can't find employment. You've been betrayed, and you wonder, where's God? My friends, Jesus joins you in your suffering. And seeing your pain and brokenness and of the world that causes this pain, he shares your sorrow. This is the God we follow. This is the God we serve and in whose name and in whose image we are called to serve. He shares your indignation at injustice and the weight of your suffering and pain, and he weeps. He joins you in your suffering. He sits beside you and cradles you in his arms as you pour out your soul to him. He weeps, and then he whispers in your ear, my son, my daughter, I am the resurrection and the life. I raised Lazarus from the dead. I rose from the dead, the first one to rise, never to die again, and I will raise your loved one when you return. And if God can raise people from the dead, surely he can resurrect your dream. Surely he can resurrect your future. I mean, you may feel like you've fallen too far or done too much or have too little to offer. You may feel that the actions of others have so ruined your life and your prospects. What hope do you have against this system? But Jesus is here, whispering life to you. He is the resurrection and the life. So here in chapter 11, we see Jesus in action. He weeps and then he acts. That's his paradigm for ministry. And we see it again in chapter 13. Now, in John chapter 13, this is a passage that's well known here at Renew. We reflect on it every time that we celebrate communion together. The trifold tradition of the love feast, the bread and the cup, and the washing of feet. There's not much that I could say that hasn't already been taught and pointed out here. But there's just two observations I'd like to highlight. First, look at how John starts the chapter, how he introduces it. He says this, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Or as some have suggested, the passage should be translated, he showed the full extent of his love. Now, if there's one thing that marked out the ministry of Jesus, it was his love. He talks about it in chapter 15 when he says, greater love has no one than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And Jesus would indeed lay down his life for us. John again points to this indelible mark on Jesus' life, his love. In the first epistle of John, he looks for a way to define love. I mean, how do you define love? According to John, you need look no further than Jesus. In 1 John 3:16, he says, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and so we ought to lay our lives down for our brothers and sisters. So the first thing we see in John 13 is that Jesus was driven to wash the disciples' feet by his love for them, a self-sacrificial love that knew no bounds and would ultimately lead him to the cross. Now, the second thing I want you to notice is just very simple. Judas, the man who would betray Jesus, was there. Jesus washed his feet too. Now, putting it all together, Jesus didn't wash the feet of the disciples because they deserved it. I mean, he didn't wait for Judas to leave before donning the towel. He did not wash their feet because he was somehow frustrated with their intransigence. He didn't wash their feet out of exasperation. He did not wash their feet to cleanse the room of the smell that would come from their feet and maybe cause indigestion during dinner. No, he got up, he washed their feet because he loved them, all of them. So in chapter 11, we see Jesus weeping and then acting. In chapter 13, we see Jesus loving and then serving. This is his paradigm for service. And to make it crystal clear, let's go back to chapter 12, because it's here that we find the link that ties these chapters together. Now, once again, there's so much in this chapter that we could spend hours looking at it. But we're just going to have to focus our thoughts on a few words of Jesus in the middle of this text. Words that are, if you will, the fulcrum of our text today. Starting at verse 23, Jesus says this, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you that unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Whoever loves his life will lose it. Whoever hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, he must follow me. And where I am, there my servant will be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. Now, these same words are found in each and every gospel. And Jesus calls on all of us. If you wish to be named with him, you must follow him. And John says, as you see it here, you must go where he goes. Well, where is Jesus? Now, the other Gospels make it clear, and John only hints at it. That's John's practice. He wants you to think and to contemplate. Where did Jesus go? And how did he get there? Well, there's really only one answer. Jesus sacrificed his life in every aspect of the word and suffered death. And not just any death. Death on a cross. Now, remember back to the astonishing claim of Jesus responding to Martha? He said, I am the resurrection and the life. Now notice this clearly. Jesus didn't just say, I'm the life. He said, I am the resurrection and the life. And that is significant. You remember back to last week's passage, Jesus made an amazing claim that Andrew touched on. Jesus said in John 10, verse 10, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full, or if you will, have it abundantly. I suggest to you that the fullness of life that Jesus promises is precisely this. It is resurrection life. And the ministry that Jesus calls us to not only points to the resurrection life found in Jesus, it also requires resurrection life to be pulsating and active within you and me. To follow Jesus then, and to experience the life he has to give, we must walk the same gauntlet. We must face down death. Death to our lives, death to our self-focused dreams, death to our possessions, death to our self-centered aspirations. We must take up our cross and follow him. For it is only in dying that we find life, true life, resurrection life. True life is only found through dying. This is the hinge that joins chapters 11 and 13, and it's the hinge that reveals Jesus' paradigm for ministry. So let's put these all together into this. Resurrection life requires walking the way of the cross. Let's say that again. Resurrection life requires walking the way of the cross. And if it means that if we're going to live like Jesus before the tomb of Lazarus, we must feel the pain of the people we seek to serve. We must feel their pain. And like Jesus rising to wash the disciples' feet, our acts of service must be driven by genuine, other-focused, cross-shaped love. Jesus would put it this way: a new commandment I give to you. Love one another as I have loved you. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. This love is to be the distinguishing mark of the followers of Jesus. It's not our theology, though that's important. It's not our position on social issues, though again, that's important. It's certainly not the grandeur of our facilities or the majesty of our cathedrals. It's not the beauty of our music or the size of our church. And it's definitely not the wealth that we so quickly label as the blessing of God. No, the distinguishing mark of the Christian and the church is love. Other-focused, cross-shaped love. It's to be the primary characteristic of our life together, and it is to be the shape of our engagement with the world. Now, in closing, I wish to offer this paradigm of service as a guide for how we as Christians in the church can engage with one of the most pressing issues facing our nation today. Over the last number of weeks, we Canadians have been deeply challenged by the discovery of unmarked graves and mass burial sites at residential schools across the country. We are a nation wrestling with history that's been laid before us, revealing the corruption and the brokenness and wickedness of a society directed at a community of people, Indigenous Canada. The history of the Canadian residential school system, it's an astonishing blemish on a society that wishes to present itself as polite, equitable, fair, and just. Now, the search for these graves is in response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of 2015. It has been difficult, triggering sorrow and pain in Indigenous communities that are processing the last century plus of oppression and the impact it's had on their families, their communities, their culture. And it's been troubling for all Canadians, many of whom wonder, what can we do? Now, I don't pretend to have the answers to these complex challenges and the journey that is before Canada if it seeks to find healing with its Indigenous population and make peace with its past. But I do believe that the only way the church can meaningfully engage with this issue is to follow the paradigm of service that we see laid out here in John 11, 12, and 13. Following in the footsteps of Jesus, going where he goes, means we must face the brokenness head on. And the first thing we need to do is weep. Genuinely weep. For the suffering people at the hands of a broken world, we must weep. For the countless lives lost in residential schools, we must weep. For the communities decimated by the policies that formed residential schools, that enabled families to be torn apart, we must weep. For the survivors who try to make sense of their losses and rebuild their sense of identity and humanity, we must weep. For the complicity of the church that 600 years ago blessed the violent displacement and enslavement of European in lands European nations would encounter across the globe, we must weep. And for the twisted doctrine of the church that supported the construct of race, diminishing the humanity of Africans and indigenous peoples, doctrines that infect the church to this very day. For this we must weep. And for the role of the church enacting government policy to forcefully assimilate indigenous children stolen away from their homes and their communities, attempting to whitewash them into mainstream Canada and eliminate what church leaders and politicians alike called the Indian problem. We must weep. Any response by the church must start here. Like Jesus before the tomb of Lazarus, we must be touched in the deepest part of our being by the pain being experienced by Indigenous Canada and at the sinful system that enacted this cruelty. You know, there are many who would want to simply rush in the aid of Indigenous communities. And I understand this. I mean, I want to show the love of Christ too. And I want my church to embody the compassion and love of Christ. But if we don't weep first, if we don't feel the pain and understand the sorrow, there's no way we can properly serve. You know, when Indigenous Canada looks at the church, what do they see? What do they encounter? I suggest to you that the message of the gospel will not be heard until the church weeps. For you see, people cannot hear the message of life and love in Jesus until we as Christians recognize the pain and suffering experienced by people, yes, at the hands of the church itself. Now, whether or not that was our church is not the point. For those who have experienced these things, the difference is inconsequential. So any response to the travesty of the historic oppression by the church must begin like Jesus before the tomb of Lazarus, feeling the pain, tasting the salt in the tears that are cried. And before taking up the towel to serve, it must be driven by an other-focused, cross-shaped, self-sacrificial love. You know, our God, he's not indifferent to the plight of the suffering and the oppressed in this world. And just as he joins in our suffering, he is to be found among the poor, the broken, and the oppressed. And so may we too be found where Jesus is. And may we discover, as we shape our lives by the cross of Jesus, as we embrace the suffering of the world as he did, and as we serve in genuine love, may we find that life, resurrection life, follows.
I see the King of glory coming on the clouds with fire. The whole earth shakes, the whole earth shakes. I see his love and mercy washing over all our sin. The people twisted tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. Then on the third, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, trample death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Sing, he shall return. He shall return in robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. Oh Lord our God. Oh Lord our God.
Well, hey, I wanted to thank Darcy, Pastor Darcy, for his awesome teaching this morning. I thought it was really compelling. It was very thoughtful and insightful, and I really loved the pattern of Jesus wept and then he acted. Like that touched me, that connected with me. And sometimes I know as a pastor, sometimes I act before I feel on something, or I react thinking I have to solve a problem here before I really take the time to understand the emotion of what's happening or what's going on, or I respond with like a solution rather than start with compassion. And I love that Jesus started with compassion. He started with understanding the people he was serving. He started with hearing their pain and their hurt. He started with knowing what they were going through and being aware of all the stuff that they were feeling before running to fix a problem. And I feel like I need that in my life too. I need to do a better job of slowing down and listening and to understand, instead of jumping to he did it or they did it or this was the problem or this was the mistake or this is how you fix it. Instead of running to the policy. I was actually thinking about that when I was thinking about what Darcy was saying. It was about sometimes with politics and stuff like that, we're jumping to like, what's the best policy here? What'll fix the problem? What'll solve the problem? And that's important. That's an important part of the process. But the compassion should come first. And it doesn't necessarily mean that compassion leads to good and useful policy, but it should start there. And then sometimes we rely on politicians to be doing the compassionate thing. And the reality is, we live in a world where the church is the ones who's supposed to be compassionate. Like we start with that, and regardless of what our political opinion is about the best solution, the church first and foremost need to be the ones who model Jesus, which is to weep first with the people, which is to show compassion, which is to understand before trying to figure out how to fix the problem. And the reality is that's what it means to be the light of the world. It means to go to the places where people are, where there's darkness, where there's pain and there's suffering, and to first weep alongside people. Carry the weight, carry the suffering, carry the emotion with them. Pray alongside them. Lament alongside people before we even try to start helping them out of that. That's what it means to be the light of the world. And I really got that from Darcy's message this morning, and he got that from the example of Jesus that we're all called to. And so I hope that was compelling to you in a way that actually is going to impact how you live, how you behave, what choices you make, how you think about serving people, moving away from this Sunday. If you're new here with us, or you just want to connect with us at all in any kind of way here at Renewed Church, since everything's online, you can't just come after the service and go talk to Darcy or talk to me and figure it out. The way that we do that online right now is we use this online Connect card that we've made. It's just on our website. It's renewedchurch.ca/connect. And the way that you can use that is just go there, you fill out that form, and we'll get an email immediately after you fill that form out. If there's something that you're processing, if there's a question that you have about the message, if there's a question about our church and the reopening plan or any plans with the youth, or if there's uncertainty about anything, or if you just need people to weep alongside you, if you're going through something right now, if you're going through a darkness, if you are suffering, if you are in pain, and you just want the church to model Jesus' example by coming alongside you and loving you and caring for you and listening to you and weeping alongside you, that's what we're here for. You can use the Connect card for that as well. We would love to be praying alongside you and follow up with what's going on in your life specifically. And so please take advantage of that and use that. I'm going to send things over to the band, and they're going to lead us in one more song before we wrap things up. And Anna's going to be leading us in that song. It's going to be really, really nice. So enjoy that with us, sing along with them, and we'll catch you guys at the end of the service.
that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
Thank you so much, Renew Church, for tuning in with us this morning. It is such a pleasure to worship with you, even though it's online, but we are definitely looking forward to being back together in person on a weekly basis starting in September. And yeah, I'm very excited for that. And thank you again for tuning in with us this morning.
Well, hey, thank you to Elizabeth and the band and Anna for leading that last song. It was a great Sunday morning, and we're glad that you guys were able to join us. Once again, thank you to Darcy for leading the teaching today. You can tell that he is very thoughtful about what he says. You can tell that he has a lot of experience, but you can tell that he really, really cares about teaching in a way that is understandable and actually leads to a difference in living, because ultimately at the end of the day, our compassion should lead to making a difference, should lead to serving, should lead to acting. And I appreciate that his teaching is almost a model of that principle of having the compassion, having the understanding, feeling the emotion, but then really thinking about then from that, what do we do? How do we live? What does it look like to live like Jesus in light of that emotion, of that compassion, of the meaning? So thank you to Darcy for that, and the rest of the gang for being here today, helping out. It was a pretty skeleton crew again.
It was pretty soft today.
How many roles did you have today?
3
Nice.
or 4? 3?
It's fun, man.
Yeah.
Good job. Hey, the announcements, things that are coming up. What other kind of roles are people going to need to fill at the big night? Well, they're not big night outs. They're going to be every weekend services in the afternoons. What are some other things people need to think about helping out with?
All of them.
Like what?
So moving on to other things.
You didn't mention kids.
Oh yeah, there's kids.
We're actually going to be able to do kids.
There's going to be kids ministry, and there's they actually have a really cool space there for it. They have a really cool space for it.
Really amazing space.
So we will need kids. We'll need the kids ministry. We'll need tech. So that's like sound.
We need some help on tech. Yeah.
That's.
The worship team's been people at our worship. They've been serving us, as you guys know. So we didn't say that in the announcements because they're already used to serving our church in that way.
Yeah,
but,
we have used them a lot. Also, there's a few tech guys who will be able to help out. They'll be able to jump back in. They've helped out here.
It's gonna be great, man. I'm working with these people again.
Yeah,
so we got to set up banners and stuff like we used to.
All the
We'd
fit
like to be
stuff,
able to do that. So
the
fit
welcome
stuff,
team,
ushering, showing people seats, welcoming people as they come in. We got a few teams that we need to fill that we're used to doing.
Coffee and whatnot.
If we're allowed to serve coffee,
we're going
to be serving coffee. Yeah. So just so you know, we're going to be sending out an email, just like Jake said, this week, and it's going to have a list of different areas of ministry that you can serve in come the fall when we're relaunching in person. We're looking to fill some of those spaces for the fall. And so if there's a specific area of ministry that you're equipped to serve in, that you'd love to jump back in and serve alongside us in, as well as particular dates that you know for sure work with you, we're going to have a form that you can fill out. And we're going to start filling out some of those blocks so that we have all these things taken care of, again, so that when we worship in person together on a weekly basis, everything's taken care of again, because Jake and I can't
run around and do everything.
We can't do 7 roles there too, right? It's great. Yeah. You can do a lot in the studio. We're able to. There's a few of us here who can jump around, and you would never know all the jumping around that unless you've been in here.
Yeah,
we can't do that in person.
No, we can't. One pro tip: one pro tip for serving: if you're a young kid with a car, do banners and bring one of your friends along. Like that was the most fun when I was a kid. When I would like roll up, I was like 19, 20. I'd roll up, and Bartley would go, "All right, banners," and I'd throw it all in the trunk of my car and whip around with Brandon Ting and Jamie and all those guys and
so much
Michael and
the crew.
The whole crew.
You need a new crew. You need a new banner crew. We need a new banner crew.
It was actually so much fun. You guys got to do it.
So those who may not know, we are going to continue to have digital content available, online services available. We're going to have teaching that's available online, and all of that will be right where it is right now. It'll be on your YouTube channel. And if you are watching this and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, I'm inviting you to do that literally right now. Even if you're on Facebook watching this and you're like, what's YouTube? Just Google YouTube. Then Google Renew Church CA.
Even if you just Google you.
Yeah, it'll come up.
And
Renew Church CA, Renew Church Canada, Renew Church CA. You'll find our little bud logo. You'll find it. And then go to that page. And you'll see basically everything we make for the internet. All the video stuff we make. Every kind of thing, you'll see it there. And there's a big button that says subscribe. And just click that. And then click the little notification bell that you'll see that looks just like that. And what that will do is that'll remind you, it'll send you an email, and it'll even send push notifications to your phone or your tablet or something when we put something new out, when we're going live for a service, because we will continue to populate that. We really believe that the online platform is a gift that God has given us to get content out. And I don't think any of us believe that doing church is about getting content out.
No.
It's way more than that.
It is.
It's about being together in person. It's about serving alongside one another. But we do believe that content delivery is a part of it. And we believe that the form of the internet, i.e. YouTube, allows us to do that really well.
Yeah. So, the one thing about YouTube is like, it's a great way to reach people. And it's stagnant. You put it out there and then it reaches people for you. You don't have to, it's not one of those things that you can pursue other medians of connecting with people. But YouTube is just a great way to show who you are. And show what you have to offer and show what you believe and stuff like that. And to do it well is really, really important because that's what the platform demands.
It does.
That's what the platform demands.
Which is why we try our best here to do a high level of excellence in the things that we're doing. So that when people come across it, they actually want to engage with it. And ultimately, and sincerely, this is our motivation because YouTube doesn't pay us any money. We really believe that if people come across good content that's helpful to them, that's interesting to listen to, what they're going to discover is underlying all of it is the gospel. Like Jesus Christ permeates all of it. He permeates not just our teaching, because we teach from the Bible, he permeates our culture. Like we try to have a culture and a posture here at Renewed Church that is representative of Jesus, because we try to follow his example in how we live, in our attitudes, in our posture, and the way that we think about things and handle things. And so we really believe people are going to come across and they're going to experience a new way of being human, the Jesus way of being human, and they're going to engage with that on our content on the internet. And like Jake said, they literally just might stumble on it. YouTube YouTube, the more people that like things and comment on things, YouTube sends it to people. So you don't have to invite them, even though you should.
You should invite them. And so if you subscribe to something and your friends are subscribed to you, or you guys are like each other on Facebook or whatever, however you do it, however the kids do it nowadays, I don't even know anymore. But it actually will send it to your friends who maybe will ask you something about the things that they see on your Facebook page and whatnot, and then all of a sudden it's a medium for evangelism.
And Darcy's message, we actually cut that up. We don't cut it up. We take it out of the service. So there's like the whole 2-hour service that you just were a part of if you're a part from the beginning. We actually take the sermon piece out and we make that available for you to just share. So the 25-minute message from Darcy, that was excellent. You can just take that and you can share it. Like tomorrow, I think it'll be up, or a couple days from now, minimally.
Definitely
it'll be up for you to just share that video with a friend. Say, hey, this is a thought. This is helpful. This is a teaching on Jesus, and you can share with anybody you want, and they get a chance to hear what you just got a chance to hear today. And if it impacted you, it'll probably impact somebody else.
And the whole John series is like that, the entire thing. So you can send everything, all of it. And the kind of the beauty of it is like we would sit around and go, oh man, remember in September when we did the Hebrew series? That was so great. Now you don't have to do that anymore. Now you can say, hey, the Hebrew series is online.
Still got it.
I can send it to my friend and they can watch it. The same one that I watched.
Yeah.
and tell them exactly how I felt about
It's
it.
going to be great, man. It's
Yeah.
awesome that we have this. It's a great opportunity. Hey, youth is
Yes.
starting back up in the fall.
In the
September
fall.
21st.
September 21st.
What are you going to do? Day one.
Day one,
Party like a rock star.
party like crazy. I don't know. We'll do something fun. We'll do. The leaders have a meeting later in this month. We'll figure it out, and we'll figure out what we're gonna do.
I hope that it is
Speaking
a
of
blast.
Speaking of things that we're gonna do, my main girl, my main party girl, Miss Jen.
It's okay.
She's
Wait,
like
where are you going with this?
She's the party animal. It's her birthday today.
What? Miss
Yeah,
Jen?
she's turning
Wait,
29.
Miss Jen Bryant's
Yeah,
birthday
Miss
today?
Jen Bryant. She's turning 29 today.
Happy 29th birthday, Miss Jen Bryant.
Yeah.
Everybody here loves you and respects you. You deserve all the best on your birthday. Hopefully
agree.
all the boys in your house say something nice to you.
And buy you flowers.
Talk
you should
to
have
you today.
You should have a bunch of flowers today.
Lots of flowers
So
today.
many flowers.
Hopefully they make like printouts of your face and put them on
Yeah.
plates and
Put them
do
on
the
boxes
things that you'd like to do.
and throw eggs at you.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, don't
Happy
throw eggs
birthday,
at you.
Miss Jen. You are very special to our hearts.
Yes.
Good shout out.
Right?
Any other shout outs before we go? Pastor Bartley still on vacation. Shout out if you are watching church on Sunday morning from California.
Yeah,
What are
like
the
and
odds?
subscribe, Bartley,
Like-
if you if you're watching.
If Pastor Mitch, if you're at home watching, we miss you.
Yeah.
We hope that you are recovering well. Pastor Mitch is continuing to cover at his brother's house. It's a slow and steady recovery, but he's been contacting some of us, and so keep recovering, brother. We love you. We are praying for you, and I know the church is as well. So that's a shout out.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see him day one of
Hey.
every week Big Night House.
Did you know students move into GCBI this week?
I did because I've
Like-
been building all the IKEA furniture.
Crazy. Welcome, GCBI students. If you're showing up and you're watching for the first time, or you're like, what? We're in town, or we're coming to town.
If you guys sleep
Welcome.
in the basement bunk bed and it breaks, I did not build that.
Whoops.
But if it's fine, I did build that.
So we won't know till the end of the year
Yeah.
if you deserve a handshake.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. There's some students from Hong Kong who are arriving who are also doing GCBI.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
If you are watching,
So awesome.
welcome. If you're going to be watching, we can't wait to have you serving alongside of us. It's
Yeah.
going to be a crazy year this year, man.
It's going to be epic.
Wild.
Epic.
Awesome stuff. Hey, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. We're here again next Sunday. Watch the stuff throughout the week. There's always good stuff. Get your kids watching Renew Kids if you don't already. We love you. We miss you. We can't wait to celebrate in person again. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.
People say that.
Yep. They do now.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.